Welcome back to the Paradox Port podcast. This is the show where we introduce you to magic products for mythic lives and the people who create them. We're living in a strange and kind of remarkable moment. Tools are cheap, distribution is fast and global, and the barrier to building real software has kind of collapsed. You really don't need a big team, a VC check, or even traditional engineering backgrounds anymore. Between all of the no code tools and AI, people who can kind of just think clearly about problems can now actually build solutions themselves. And that's really changed the shape of the entrepreneurial journey. It's much less about permission and more about taste and persistence and just following an idea far enough to see if it wants to live. And I think you both are really a great example of that shift. So, to kick this off, I'd love if you could just tell us a little bit about your own journey and how this kind of particular moment in time made Hard Reset possible.
Sure. Well, I guess I'll field this one to kick things off here. And I'm joined with Janet, the co-founder of Chop Wood, where we're making this hard reset product. And I think there's a lot of context leading up to this that we can choose to get into if we want to. But I think what you're talking about in particular is really the advent of the technologies that enabled this to happen. So we've had ideas for this for a very long time, and we've honed it into like the thing that we wanted to build. But my background is in data science and product innovation, so it's like somewhat relevant to all this stuff. And Janet has an experience in product management. And so the main thing is like we had this great idea. I tried to build out some prototypes with Excel, and that didn't really work out so well. And the problem was I didn't know how to build an app. And with GPT-4 launching in March of 2023, that was the first like, oh man, like this could be like useful. I might not have to invest a whole bunch of time in learning this whole new framework, and I can instead just learn how to get this thing to do what I want to build the product that I'm envisioning. And so essentially from March 2023, I was super into all this, the AI products. I would give lectures as a consultant at various organizations, reading all the papers, being just super into like, what are the capabilities? What are the limitations? And by the time we got into 2024, I basically took the small amount of Flutter and Dart knowledge that I have, which is that's the framework we're using to build the app, and I basically put that on the back burner. And I said, okay, well, can we actually start to build this thing? And so throughout 2024 was a lot of planning, and then by the end of Q3 and 4, started the actual implementation part time while I was working full time, and by the end of the year, we had a fully functional checklist and like a really strong framework for what we wanted to build. And so starting in 2025, I basically just said, to hell with this, I'm going to give this a shot. And I quit my job, and I've been working on this full time since. And it has just been an absolute joy to be able to pursue your passion and to really make it come to life here over the past year. And it's so far, the capabilities of these technologies have completely enabled the entire process. I would probably have had to go back and have learned this stuff for at least a few years to even have like the groundwork to build this. And now it's just like, oh, any new technology I want to plug in, I can find out how to do that. It's just so easy to gain the information you need to build the whatever you have in your head. You can just get it out and express it through any medium you want these days, so long as you have the help of these tools. And so, yeah, it's been really impactful for the development of this product for sure.
Amazing. Janet, anything to add there?
Uh, yeah, I would say the differentiator for us is Will touched on it, but we've had an idea for something like this for years, right? We didn't find the technology that, hey, you can build a software tool pretty easily and like, let's find a problem and then build a tool for it. We've had the idea. Will and I worked together for multiple years at a startup, and we talked about behavior change and productivity apps and like every day for years, thinking about how do you do the thing you don't want to do? How do you
It's
do
the
that?
question.
And right, and what we kind of have always coalesced on is like, I need this app for me. Like I need this app because I need help doing the things I don't want to do. And so we talked about it for a long time. So it's not like, I think a lot of vibe code stuff is like, find a problem and then fix it with a with an app or a tool that you can build with AI and try to fill that hole, and maybe you'll hit it, right? But I think we have a different angle of like, we've been thinking about how to solve this problem for ourselves and for people like us for a long time. And then like we have this great synchronicity of the tech. We caught up to the tech at the same time as the tech caught up with us, kind of. And so I think that kind of sets us apart. As there's probably other teams that are doing it too, but it's particular for us that this is like the right thing at the right time for us.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the importance of really having like a well thought out idea is going to be what really sets people apart now, because the market is probably going to be flooded with a lot of just like, impulsively designed random things that people haven't put a lot of thought into. So
I think
yeah.
the stat I remember on that is like in the past year, the number of apps in the App Store has increased like 15% or so, but the revenues have not. So there's basically people are making
Right,
more stuff and
exactly.
flooding it in there. And a lot of it, unfortunately for us, happens to be in this productivity app space because everyone knows that this is a problem they have and they think they're going to make the personalized one that's right for them. And then you kind of have this this whole set of apps out there that are kind of half baked.
Yep. Well, I'm sure people are dying to know now what actually is Hard Reset. Tell us a little bit about the app and how it looks.
Yeah, so Hard Reset is, and this is our little motto here, our catchphrase. It's the game powered by your life. And the reason that we frame it like that is because this is first and foremost a game. It's a full game, has an intense, or I should say, complex set of mechanics that have all been built together around that's basically pulling inspiration from all of my favorite games, all my favorite media, and putting it together in this, I think, a very well articulated way. And basically what it is a roguelike deck builder. I love deck builders, Slay the Spire, all these kind of like Slay the Spire, that's my favorite game of all time, and I did get
It
quite a
is
bit of
lovely.
inspiration from it. And it's a matter of pulling this stuff together. And it's a roguelike deck builder. It's a cyberpunk theme to it. I love the theme. I love characters with mohawks. I'm pointing to my head right now. I've got one of these mohawks as well. Maybe it's it was fun to build all around that. And basically, what you're doing in this game is you're on this epic quest to save the world in a sense, of course. And in this world, you have a dystopic capitalist hellscape, essentially, that's ruled by all these oligarchs. There are mutants around from the results of experimenting with cloning technologies, and there are a bunch of a criminal faction, and you're basically going through this set of nodes on a map, a procedurally generated map, to experience events where you get to learn more about the lore, where you get to upgrade your character, to move on to combat, where it is this kind of turn-based strategy game, and that's really where I think where a lot of the complexity of the game is. And then you're battling these elites, you're finally battling the boss. And the whole story here is essentially this one where it's still in development, but it's one where you get to ask yourself questions like, would you free an artificial super intelligence, even if you didn't know if the outcome would be humanity's extinction or flourishing? And so there's a lot of like philosophical depth that we're building into it, and it's mostly just like this. Somewhat of a very relevant power fantasy of sorts, to where you actually can take on the oligarchs, where you have the ability to make a change in the world, and being able to play that out in a game is, for me, a deeply satisfying thing, because in reality, it's a lot more difficult.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Janet, what was kind of the initial spark for the idea? You mentioned that you had this idea a long, long time ago, and you've been bouncing off
Mhm.
ideas. Was there kind of like a specific frustration or moment where you thought like this just has to exist? I want to build this for myself.
Mhm. Mhm. I'm not sure. There's probably a series of moments. Just a little background on our relationship. We didn't like each other at first. We didn't like each other. Um, we were kind of we come from very different worlds, very different. I'm a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder. Like, I have a bunch of uh, decisions in my life that were not life affirming and really dangerous for people around me, right? So I came from that. We both worked in on a app for people. It was designed for people in recovery. And I was the product person, and Will was the data person. And we it turns out we had a lot of the same ideas, though we came from very different spaces. And he's a very like highly degreed person, very intelligent. I'm not, and rather goofy.
I'm
And
sure you
I
are.
have
So
I am rich in lived experience. I will say that I'm rich in lived experience. But we we came around to the like we have a lot more. I think I probably have more in common with Will than anyone else in my life. So
Oh, I feel the
that
same.
yeah, it's real. I mean, we've just developed this friendship. So part of it was just we just wanted to continue working together. And so I think that's been part of it is like we just really enjoy how each other thinks. And so we had a lot of the same questions. And I have a lot of people in my life and in my community that would really benefit from like how do you change? How do you change? And um, we had these we would talk about it pretty much nonstop. And then we both separated from that startup and stayed in touch. And Hard Reset was originally like we have an analog card game that we built. We used whiteboards and tokens and dice and all kinds of things to build the idea, because we were really interested in the idea of like what makes something fun. How do you make something fun, and how do you use that to like change your life, right? So I think we just always started we that was the impetus of like I want to continue to work with this person. I want this person to stay a part of my work, and we're both really passionate about helping people, and so and Slay the Spire is my favorite game of all time, right? Like we both have that kind of stuff in common. So I think it's there's a lot of things that work together to make this really special for me. In some ways, I don't care if it's successful in some ways. That would be great. I would love it if we both could do this full time. But that's not the main motivation to me. It's like I just want to continue maybe hopefully helping people and working with Will.
it's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I think it is fascinating that it feels like a lot of people who are trying to build some sort of like habit change formation, a lot of them have had some experience with substance abuse or things along those lines. I think it's just the people who have like, seen the limits of their own willpower and really want to try to find some way around that. And then they're drawn to try to create things for themselves that solve the problem and others. So it's, yeah, I've had some experience with that as well, and it's just a lot of my work is kind of driven from that perspective as well. So yeah, great to be connecting with you on that
Yeah, no,
fact as
I
well.
think I think substance use disorder, I think, really is the most like one of the most extreme versions of like answering the question, like, what should I be doing in life right now? Which is something that we're asking ourselves all the time. And for people that are in recovery, it's a very strong, you either are doing the right thing or you're probably going to be doing the wrong thing. And so the ability to build a structure around that is just the stakes are so much higher. Now, that's not to say that for other folks that don't have substance use disorders, we still have these same sort of questions, but the stakes are just less extreme, thankfully. And so
Yeah.
these are all tools meant to solve that same sort of thing. It's like, what should I be doing right now, and how can I motivate myself to do that stuff? Because I think hyperbolic discounting is the fancy term to say that human beings don't put a lot of value on the future. Like just by default, our brains are wired poorly. As a result of our evolutionary process, we just have these brains that are just so focused on the present. And so to build tools where we can take the future joys and essentially pull them into the present via mechanisms like fun and the game mechanics, that's really what a lot of this is about.
Yep. Yeah. Without a doubt. Janet, you were mentioning just like you were really curious about how to actually make a habit change tool a game that is actually fun. And something that I've kind of noticed in this space is that there are a lot of apps out there, like I guess Habitica is an example, other things along those lines that are kind of like, you know, gamification light. They're like slapping on a couple of badges and awards and, funny fantasy costumes or whatever to an app that is basically a habit tracking app. So how did you kind of think about really trying to differentiate your guys' selves and really make something that's actually genuinely fun?
So part of
It's
the
great.
inspiration for Hard Reset is a revulsion towards Habitica and other apps that are like that. And so I'm not gonna lie,
Yep.
I I look at these apps and they all kind of have a similar properties, and they all go wrong in some very fundamental way. And Habitica, congrats to them for like being a first mover in this space and being able to at least think outside the box. But essentially, from my point of view, it's a progress bar watcher. And that's what a lot
Exactly.
of these apps are.
Yeah.
And then, from the early 2010s, there's the gamification movement, and there's this concept of PBL, points badges, and leaderboards. And it feels like, oh yeah, everyone's like, oh man, I know how to make our engagement and retention metrics skyrocket. We'll slap some points on there and add some badges for achievements. And that's really, when you think about the nature of what Habitica is doing, is they're just it's basically you fight these kind of strange creatures that are related to chores, and as a result you earn essentially things to change your avatar, or earn pets or eggs or little things that are supposed to motivate you. And the problem, and I think that's great for some people, and I don't want to I'm not going to say that it's not a good product. I think it's a great product for a specific subset of people. For people like me, I hate that stuff. I don't like the whimsy nature of it. I don't. It just it's all so it's childish. I think maybe is that the right word? I
Cutesy.
don't know.
Cutesy.
Yeah, it's cutesy, and I'm not into that aesthetic, and I want to be motivated by something that's more than just like, hey, here's an avatar. And if I don't care about the way the character looks, then I get no sense of motivation from it. And so that's why, like, making the fun, the actual source of the motivation, fun, which is scalable, that was really the key here. And as a key point to this too, like, and I use this reference quite a bit, but when you think about the nature of running. I mean, for most people, I'm going to say it sucks. It's not a fun thing to do. You do it because you have to, right? Or you exercise because you have to. But suddenly, if you add 2 nets and a ball to the act of running, and you add some rules, you have a game like soccer. You have basketball. You have games where people are running constantly, unaware of the discomfort they're feeling because they're having so much fun. And that's really the core of this, is like, how do we basically apply that same sort of framework to other tasks outside of just running?
And for people who haven't actually seen the app yet, it's very much modeled after Slay the Spire. It's, the kind of same procedurally generated map. You move from node to node. You get cards that, expand as you go along, and you have to play those cards to kind of counteract various moves that the opponents are doing. Anything else that I'm missing kind of in that system that you think really like makes it engaging and fun? Because Slay the Spire is undoubtedly a fun game, for sure. But
It,
anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun game, but they do get some things wrong, and it pains me to say that, as the greatest game of all time. But there are some things about it that I didn't like, and I knew that we needed to improve with what we're doing, because we're not just copying. We're not copying this game. We're taking a lot of mechanics from this. We're taking mechanics from Balatro, from Hades, from Luck Be a Landlord. I mean, really all my favorite roguelikes. I'm trying to pull the best ideas in. And in particular, with Slay the Spire, you have the relics is one of those things. It's like passive things you get that like boost your abilities. And one thing that's just always bugged me about that is, why does a spinning top, which is a relic you can get, why does that make it so that when I have no cards in my hand, I draw a card? Like it's just sort of a symbol for something that does a random thing. You really could basically hit a randomize button on the effects for all the relics and just tie them back in, and it'd be the exact same thing, because it's sort of nonsense. And so this is just like one of those mechanics where, like, you're a cyborg in my game, and you have hardware, which is like your arms, your legs, the implants you have, and all this stuff. And so when you actually put on your industrial reinforced arms, you have a new set of abilities. That's going to give you a passive ability to increase your strength, having the arms itself. And then when you have those arms, you actually have cards added to your deck, because each piece of hardware comes with those abilities. And those abilities are punching a lot, basically. And so when you get legs that are like, your high endurance legs, you're going to be able to run further, draw more cards. So there's all the concept of the hardware is directly tied to the ability it gives you in game. And so this is just like one of the many aspects of Slay the Spire where there's a lot of room for improvement. And I think that, hopefully people like it.
Yeah, no, and it's really well executed. It's really obvious. You get like a blaster, you get leg implants, whatever, and then you get cards that are directly related to that. And it's like, okay, makes sense. Let's see how these cards work in battle. And they do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'd like to add, though, part of I think that what makes it fun is this idea. I mean, going off the idea that we built an app for us, right? Like it's really for us. So the story, the purpose that you have in the game, I think is also really engaging and fun for me, right? This idea that in my day job, I work as a advocate for people with behavioral health disorders or behavioral health crisis, right? And one of the things that we talk about is like if you're going to serve disenfranchised people, you not only want to uh, serve and support what they need and want, but we also need to break the system that is oppressing them, right? Like that's part of supporting people who are oppressed is break the system that's causes oppression. And so that's very near and dear to both of our hearts, right? Of like that's an important part of the game that makes it fun for me is right. Like, yeah, we're making positive change, right? We're breaking systems of oppression. That is very engaging in itself. And I think to me the art of the game, the color of the game, the script of the game, the language, all of it is real part of the fun to me, not just the mechanics, but how it looks is super engaging to me. So, really like if we're lucky, the app that we build for ourselves, other people will like, right? And I think it's like we're finding that out, right? We're finding out if people like the stuff that we like. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean the corporate capitalist hellscape comes through loud and clear, and that is quite enjoyable, at least for me. I'm sure there will be some out there who find it a little off-putting, but people always will. But just like the presence of, I don't know, like the drones that you'll see kind of look like Amazon delivery drones, or like
what a coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I guess I just want to say well done on executing on that tone, because I do think it gives it a lot of flavor and makes it feel more compelling and engaging. Which then just like kind of a genuine question from my end that I'm not totally sure about how it plays out because I haven't spent a ton of time with the app. It's a game that, like Slay the Spire, kind of resets every time that you die, right? So how do you actually like create that narrative? Is it that each time you go through, you get different bits of information that are kind of randomly seeded throughout? I'm just curious, how did you actually build a narrative in a game that's constantly resetting you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because if you die, like in theory, yeah, you should just lose absolutely everything. But this game is a roguelite in the sense that there is a strong meta progression, and so when you die in this game, the lore here is that it's kind of tied in with the mutants as well. Is that like for they're basically we're trying to like clone people or be able to create an ability where once you die, your consciousness is immediately uploaded upon death, basically via magical technology, right? The Tribinium refactorizer. I don't know. And so what happens then is essentially you wake up in a half assembled essentially, where you have this character in front of you that's assembling you and saying, oh, you're alive again, in this very sardonic sort of sarcastic character, and maybe next time you'll have a better chance of staying alive. And so as you're going through the game though, and so that's how the death cycle works. But as you're going through, you're meeting characters, and there's one in particular which is he's an agent for your anonymous benefactor. So in the very beginning of the game, you're awarded some number of creds, and so you're aware that there's some anonymous benefactor out there benefiting you and helping you out. And so as you meet this agent in the field that's for this benefactor, they let you know, hey, we're watching your progress. As you do certain things, you'll be able to, we'll invest more money in your regeneration and your ability. It's in their interest to also bring down the oligarchy, and you don't have no idea who this is, a big mystery. But suddenly, next time you die, the benefactor has granted you better arms and legs, and so that's like a permanent meta progression upgrade. And then next time there is a wetware upgrade, and wetware. And so in this game, there's a distinction between the hardware on your body and all those abilities, and also your brain could be modified via wetware and insights. And so there's this kind of dynamic of a lot of modification potentials there. But anyways, you'll be able to basically choose a permanent card to add to your deck, which is like a glue card, a staple card, which gives you like more draw and inflicts vulnerability. It's just good for basically any build. And so as you're going through and you're meeting this benefactor and you're beating more elites and you're making more and more progress, you're getting more and more of this meta progression upgraded. And we have plans to really make this a much more expanded thing than we have right now. We want to have this to be a full game. Right now, it's essentially one act that you're kind of repeating, but by the end of it, it'll be a full, complete 3 acts where there is a complete story that you're going through, and the goal is essentially to make it through to the end and to finally beat the mystery, the final boss here, and figure out who the benefactor is, what are their actual intentions, and understand how the mystery and the twists all unfold.
Okay, beautiful. That makes a ton of sense. I didn't I think I got just to the point where I died once and I was like, "Oh, I got some arm and leg upgrades. Cool."
And I guess
Um,
it's worth adding too that, and this is something that we just added, so it still needs to be plugged into everything. But we have a meta progression, sort of a progress section of the app where you can see, hey, this is your longest task streak. This is your, all your streaks are listed here. This is how many times you beat normal enemies, elites. This is how many times you beat the game with this piece of hardware. And so as soon as you unlock these milestones and these achievements, these are going to be tied directly to permanent unlocks in the game, which is like, oh, now suddenly, as a result of this, you unlock this new piece of hardware, and and so that is available in the pool of hardware that you can get, hardware and wetware you can get as you progress through the game. And so that's another way we're tying in the permanent upgrades to the actual game.
right. And then they're like not just cosmetic upgrades, they actually have an impact
Exactly.
on the game that is meaningful.
Yeah.
Janet, let's maybe pivot just a little bit to some of the kind of behavior change side of things. At its core, it is just like a behavior change system mechanism of some sort that's trying to get people to be more consistent with, following through on things that they want to do. How did you kind of think about designing that system in general, and how consciously did you think of it as like a behavior change system?
Day one, right? I mean, it's always been that, right? And again, we worked on it at a startup together, and that startup was about behavior change. And we learned a lot about like what we would do and what we wouldn't do, and what we thought was positive and what we thought was negative. And we did a lot of research together, and shared with the broader team of things about, particularly this was a substance use disorder population, right? And so like some of the important facts that we brought was the idea of the future for someone who's suffering from SUD, right? That their idea of the future, I don't know, Will, was it about 9 days?
Yeah,
I
it was
think that
about like
was
the study, and I don't know all the details here, but you basically had 2 groups. One group, it does not have substance use disorder. The other, I think it was heroin, or I think, yeah, that was the substance of choice. And they basically asked them a certain number of questions, and one of the questions was something like how long into the future are you, or like describe like your plans for the future, just something ambiguous. And the average amount of time that the non-substance user group said was like something like a year and a half or so. They were thinking about like weddings and promotions, things that are far out. And then this group here was thinking about essentially the next week. That was the entirety of their future. And so they
Mhm.
really have blinders on to things that are really far out there. And that's why it's so critical for you to basically take the stuff that's outside the blinders and pull it into what's consciously recognizable.
Mhm.
And I'll just add too with what Janet's talking about. I mean, when I joined the team, I was there as a consultant. I knew nothing about substance use disorders. I've never had any experience with it. I never known anyone that was in that sphere. And so basically, my first step was I think we read about 40 or 50 papers. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. Let me refer to the experts here. And the main thing that came out of especially this meta analysis on like what's actually effective is that contingency management. This is one of the behavioral therapies. There's a number of them out there. There's a community reinforcement approach. There's all these. There's anyway, the point here is that contingency management was noted to be severely underutilized for its levels of efficacy. And the main reason for that is how do you have a system where you're able to, and contingency management, for those who don't know, I don't know why I assumed everyone knew that, is essentially rewards are contingent on the behavior that you want to reinforce. So it's a positive reinforcement system where, hey, if you are in recovery and you go to your support group meetings, if you do the things you're supposed to be doing, then you get the rewards for that. And so that's a really great system, but you have to have someone to like basically dole out the rewards, to check in on everything. And it's a very complex and hard thing to do. And so digitizing that was like the obvious way that we can basically take this extremely effective behavioral therapy and apply it to a broad group of people with all the organization and everything built into the app itself. And so that was really I think the key for me was like contingency management is just severely underutilized, super effective. Why aren't we doing more of this? And that's really what it was the base ideas around this stuff. Obviously, there's other forms of motivation that we wanted to pull in from behavioral sciences, but that's really the core of a lot of what we're doing here is the positive reinforcement for doing the action. And there's I'll just say there's two things that matter with contingency management. One is the size of the reward, and the other is the immediacy of the reward. And so the digitized platform has this benefit of the immediacy is right then. You tapped, you did something, you immediately get the feedback that you did it, and so you get that immediate positive connection. And the size of the reward, that was the thing that was that's the hard thing. And when we were working at this organization, we actually had dollars. We were working with insurance companies, and so they would initially it was $900 over the course of 1 year that we essentially slotted into a program with like it's a whole like fun thing to put that together. But at the end of the day, $900 was too much for insurance companies, and so that number kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And lo and behold, so did the efficacy, and that's because it was directly tied to the amount of that reward. And so the great thing about fun is that it scales really, really well. If you're having a good time, you're gonna just do it because you intrinsically enjoy doing it. So the extrinsic reward side of things doesn't really matter as much when you're having fun doing it. And that's why for people who like strategy games, this is going to be, I think, really good for motivation.
And that's the part of the startup that we really had a hard time selling to the executives of like, let's swap in fun for money. Like, let's use fun as the currency instead of dollars, right? I think contingency management and most places that it's used is like money or the chance of money, right? Like you win a chance to get a gift card. And so it's super effective. People will work pretty hard for the chance to get a gift card, but we never really got to see like what will people do to participate in something that's fun for them. And we often would talk about we still talk about like what makes someone willing to do the thing, right? And my example that I use is like I want to take vitamins every day. I have the box of vitamins. I set it all up at the beginning of the week of the vitamins I want to take. My wisdom self is like, yes, I want to add vitamins to my life and I'm going to set it up so I can do that. And then when it's time to take the pills, I don't like swallowing big pills. So I look at them and I say, not right now. No, no, thanks. Right. And so that's a very small example of something that lots of people are suffering from, right? Of like, my future self wants me to do this, but my right now self doesn't want to do it. And so how can we add a little bit of weight on the side of the scale of like, say yes to your future self, right? Don't deny your future self. And so, we've just been thinking about that a lot. And I think we learned a lot at the startup together of this idea, right? Just because we couldn't execute it there. We couldn't do it there.
It was really frustrating. Really, really frustrating.
It was really frustrating.
Because we wanted to help as many people as possible. And what we told is like, no one can use this unless they have this very specific form of insurance. And even then there's, an eligibility process. We're just like, we want to help a lot of people. We need to make this a free product. How do we make it free? And so that I think was a lot of like, we got to build this eventually someday. And then, then the AI came along that enabled this whole thing. And so it's just been a very natural process, I think, for us to pursue it.
Yeah. I love the idea of just fun being much more scalable. I do think it's I think you all and me included, we're not the first people to have had that idea. The issue is actually executing on making something fun. And I think like I've seen, as we talked about already with Habitica and other things, so many apps come through. I've been a part of some corporate endeavors of trying to make things more gamified and fun. And to be honest, like if you can't say that it is fun yourself, no one else is gonna. So like, I don't know. I've seen so many things come out that I'm like, I mean, it's cute, it's all right, whatever. Like, but it's not actually fun. So I think you guys were very smart in building off of a framework like Slay the Spire that has a lot of, it's got a big record. People love that game. So by building off of something like that, that's already pre-validated as fun, That's great. I do have a question though, in terms of just like, I found myself as I was playing it, like I ran out of I forget what the metric is, but like the AP or something that allows you the action points or
Points.
something. Yeah, yeah. And pretty quickly I found myself being like, gosh, should I just like say I did some tasks I didn't do so I could progress more? And how do you think about that? How do you think about like, because in terms of contingent, wow, I can't say that word right now. Um,
CM, well, the
in
CM is
terms
the,
of CM, in terms of what you were saying, you need to actually have that reward doled out in a consistent way that actually reinforces the behavior, and it can't be unpaired from the behavior. So yeah, how did you think about that? Or did you, or were you like, it's just in their hands, they can make that decision?
Oh, we did.
yeah,
We
we know
do.
this is something that, like, especially like at that startup, like this is like a really big question. It's like, how do we stop the cheaters from cheating, right? Because this is real money and all that fun stuff. And the philosophy that we took towards this is we're not going to police you. If you want to cheat, you can cheat. And we're going to try and put some guardrails in here. So, for instance, when assigning action points, because you could assign the action points to a particular task, we use the Fibonacci sequence, and it goes up to 13. And so you can kind of like decide, is this a trivial task? Is this a challenging task? Is this a hard task? And then assign a point value in that range. We're not allowing you to go in there and say, this is worth 1,000, and I'm going to just check it off and have enough action points to complete many, many games. I don't know. So you're constrained in that way. But there are ways to bypass this pretty easily. You just create a bunch of tasks, and then you check them all off, at the maximum amount of action points. But in my view, this game is not going to be a very useful tool for behavior modification at that point for you. But what it is going to do is it's going to be better than nothing. And also, if it's such a fun game that you're willing to like cheat in order to play more because you want to play more, I see that as a positive signal. Even if it's not changing their behavior, at least they're having fun. Like having fun in itself is a positive change to have in life. And so, no, it's not hitting the target exactly, but if the result is a positive result regardless, we're there for it. And for the people that actually don't cheat and that are trying to get the most out of this, I think that's in the ideal case, I think they're going to definitely have the incentive not to cheat, because once you start cheating, then you basically you kind of lose a lot of it's kind of this bright red line theory of like, once you cross that line, it becomes much easier to cross it again and again and again. And so just not cheating makes it so that you get more of what you want out of the game, which is that motivation.
Yep. Yeah. How did you think about, like, so you've got kind of for people maybe if it's still not clear, you've got sort of a to-do list, you've got a couple of different task types, you've got the simple like check them off, you've got the more is better virtues, which is something like I don't know, calling a friend or something. The more you do it, the better it is. Did you do you have any plans, or did you think about having something that kind of ladders up to more of like a high level goal, where like you set some sort of goal that you want to achieve in the coming campaign or something, and then like have some way that those tasks relate to it? Or are you just kind of for now keeping it at more of the like daily to-do list level?
Well, there are challenges in doing that, and there's a lot of value and challenges, and it's hard to bridge that gap, because on the one side of things, meaning is the deep and ultimate source of motivation. What is it, Nietzsche, who said, like, if you give a man a why, he can suffer any how. No, maybe I reversed that, but the point here is that if you have a meaning to do something, you'll be able to find the motivation no matter what. And so, how do you help people discover their meaning? Well, that's not something you can really put an app in front of someone and have that outcome of the app be, oh, now I know my meaning in life. And so you can break it down from there. So so if we're not able to discover meaning without like tons of therapy, working with people, working with coaches, lessons, like that's all stuff that you have to do a lot of introspection for. And we didn't want this app to be, here's a wall of text, swipe. Here's a wall of text, swipe. And then write your feelings about this and that. And just like, that is not the app that we wanted to build here, because that's not really fun. We want this to be for someone who knows what, like, has at least some semblance of knowledge about what they want to be doing. And so as much as like lessons and that sort of thing are interesting to bake in, this is not a long text format game. In fact, I despise long text format games, and
Mhm.
that's why. And this is a game built for me, and so the most text you see on a screen at once is like maybe you'll get like in the very beginning, the intro sequence. I think I saw there was up to like 7 lines of text at one point. That hurt me a little bit, but that
Mhm.
was kind of the maximum that I would allow on the screen because this is not about reading a lot. It's about decision making and strategy, and the more
Mhm.
that side for me is a lot more fun.
I think we also want to avoid being prescriptive.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to tell someone what they should be doing, right? Because it makes you seem like a preachy know-it-all, right? And you just don't. I don't know what any one person needs motivation to do, and I don't want to seem like we're a morality judge of like, are you doing the thing you should be doing, right? So how would we do that? I think that we do have some idea of like making some like a list of things that are common things that people might put in for AP points, right? Like taking your vitamins might be something that you could pick from a list. Maybe, and we'll figure out how to do that in a way that works. That's not prescriptive and doesn't seem like we're suggesting you brush your teeth or whatever, right? So I think that's the thing we're sensitive to of like, how do you do that without a wall of text and without seeming prescriptive?
Yeah, and I think the features that we have like the planned features. The list of this is like thousands of lines long, and so but at least in the somewhat high priority here is to reduce the friction of actually getting started because when you get started, you have to like add a task, write the name out, write all the details, the recurrence, and so like to Janet's point here, instead of it just being like here's an empty thing, get started, and that's kind of daunting. Just having a preset list where it's maybe it is like just the most common task, but also just things like you're the student. Here's the student package, and you can like modify like, oh, it
Mhm.
includes this study time. I'll just tap up, 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 or down, 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 and I want it to be this frequent. And so the whole guide will be there essentially in front of you. That's default, and then you just hit OK, or you make some small modifications. That's all stuff that we have planned in the works here. But for now, yeah, it is very much just adding one at a time. And I guess what I'll say is that like having the checklist be suitable to anyone's needs was extremely important. And I think this is something where
Mhm.
we talked a little bit about where other apps go wrong. I think that most of them are like, oh, this is a habit app, therefore you do this every single day, and that's how this thing works, and it's a streak based thing. And other ones are like, oh no, it's only to do's, you check them off as you do it. And so none of these things really felt like they accommodated what everyone wanted to do. Because like for instance, if I want to work out 3 times a week, but I don't care what day I work on, there are no apps that support that sort of a structure. And so that's something weekly flex goal is what we call it in here. It's like, yeah, you enter that in there, and as you check it off, you'll it doesn't matter which day you do it, as long as it's done within the week, that'll count for your streak. And so making it accessible in that way, and like the more is better virtues, that was for things like I know that from building all these checklists and having worked with them my entire for all my adult career, like I know that I need the ability to say I did something and I want to do more of it, and every time I do more of it, it's good. I don't just check it off for good. And I thought it was
Right.
really interesting. One of the players in their virtues said pet cat. And so that's like, it's like a perfect sort of like, yeah, well, you pet the cat. That's a good thing. You can, you can give yourself a point there. Oh, you want another, maybe you want to take another turn. Just go pet the cat a bit. And then you can take another turn. I love that stuff.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love the just the kind of commitment to not being prescriptive. I think that in my work in creating my my journal, just roll with it, was really an important thing to me, where I kind of presented a lot of people with information, and it is more text heavy.
Well, yours
But
is very much like that is the whole nature of it, right? So that's the big
it
difference
is.
there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But the whole idea was like not saying that this, this goal setting methodology, or this, whatever habit formation hack is going to work for you. Here's some information about it. Try it out, experiment with it for a little bit, see how it makes you feel. And then if you like it, then you can commit to using it over a longer period. But taking that kind of like experimentation kind of, um, yeah, just a very experimentative approach was important to me. And it sounds like you guys are thinking about it similarly, just in the sense that you are creating more of a blank canvas, and then you might introduce later on down the road some like suggestions, but they're not going to be like, do this, then that in this way at this time. I know we're running low on time. So let's maybe just pivot to a little bit about where you guys are at right now in the development process, and where people can find it, and where you're hoping it's all going to be headed.
Yeah, so right now we are in early access, which is to say we have all of the game mechanics working, and it's a fully functional game, but it is not quite to where we want it to be. Which is to say the amount of content we want to put into this is about 3x what we have right now. Like we have archetypes and like specific archetypes for like how you can synergize your things together, but they're not. There's not as quite as much diversity as I want there, and in terms of enemies, and the main goal of enemies is to challenge archetypes. We want to have more enemies to challenge the archetypes that we'll be adding, and so that's all planned content as well as the whole story. But again, where we are right now is you can get in there, you can create your tasks, you can play the game, you can do everything that you can in the full game, except for there's just not going to be as much of a narrative, or there's going to be not as many enemies and events. And so, if you want to download this game, it's available on iOS and Android. You can just find it in the store. Or you can go to hardreset.app, and that's where we have links to all this stuff, as well as the promotional videos if you're interested in seeing some of that stuff. Jen, anything I'm missing there?
I don't think so. I mean, we wrote it in Flutter so we could be on most different platforms at some point.
Oh yeah, that's worth mentioning here. Yeah, the Flutter is a framework where at some point we will be building this to browser. So like you'll be able to play this in your browser. So you take it out, you have your phone with you, you're out, you're checking things off, you come back, you sit down, you'll be able to use it on your computer as well. And that for me, that's ideally it would all be browser based, but I know mobile, everyone has to have a phone these days, and so browser based eventually, and then building to Windows and Mac natively is in the work or planned. But really, we're playing the full release of the game. The 1.0 is planned for end of March right now, and that's about the time that we'll have the content in there and the finished game at a level where I'll feel good with putting a subscription on there and really starting to advertise it. So if you want the game for free, now's the time to do it, because I'd love to have your feedback and enjoying the game, and let me know what you think about it. That'll be grandfathered in. You won't ever have to pay. So just would love more people to try it out. Let me know what they think.
And there's a link to our Discord in the app. So if you just want to get in touch and give us feedback about any of it, we would love to hear more there.
Amazing. Yeah, I will. I'll put links to everything you just mentioned in the video description so people can find you there. Just one last little closing question I like to ask everyone: what's one habit or ritual or rule that you personally live by that has made your life better in some way?
I guess I'll field this one first. Right now, my list of habits is like the things that I'm trying to improve right now is actually not as big as it once was, and I think that has a lot to do with every day I'm just working on this app, right? And so there's not like, oh, I got these deadlines, these constraints, my time is very much stolen by all these different meetings, and so I feel like having more time is really a benefit to that. But I will say, in terms of rules, because this is something that's kind of a more of a meta level thing, there's and I don't remember the exact quote here, but the idea here is that if you don't want to get shot, it you have the option to either wear a bulletproof vest and go into the battlefield, or not go into the battlefield. The ideal option is just not to go into the battlefield. And what that means is, like, for instance, I'm someone who I enjoy drinking, perhaps a bit too much, but if I want to like stop for any period of time, just don't have alcohol in the apartment is the key. Like that's a lot of it is just don't put yourself in a position where you will find that temptation. If you know that on this route home, the person that sells drugs is going to be on this corner, don't take that route home. Like, it's a lot of just, you got to separate yourself from the stimuli that causes the desire. And so if you can make that first step by just avoiding the stimuli altogether, that's a big part of staying on track with your goals in life.
Absolutely, yeah. I could not agree more. The just kind of the whole
I
field
could
of
not
choice
agree less.
architecture.
So I
Really?
could not agree less. I mean, this is how we're different, right? Like, that line of thinking just makes no sense to me at all, because we have a different thing, right?
Yeah,
We just have like, I have SUD, right? I know I'll say I'm not going to walk past the corner,
and
and
then you
then I
will.
find myself walking past the corner without my consent, right? So I just have we just bring different things to the table of like how we think about that, and I would say the mantra that I live by is, um instead of avoid the thing that's negative, I tend to ask, like, what does the thing that you can't avoid do for you? Right? What does drinking do for you? And how can we change your life in a way that that need is met at a different level, right? And so some of mine has been I drank and used everything to be closer to people and to be in a community and to be a part of life. And how can I meet those needs at a level, at a different level, so that that need to drink isn't there anymore? I don't need alcohol and drugs to feel connected to people. What I need to do is like take the risk of telling them how I feel, or take the risk of feeling awkward and feeling like I'm not going to fit in, or being worried that you're not going to like me and doing it anyway. So we have we have this one thing different about us that is very
One thing, are
interesting
you kidding
to.
me? We're I guess we're a lot alike, but we're very different. I
We
mean,
have
tarot cards.
one.
Why I didn't like you when I met you is because I learned you are into tarot cards and crystals. I'm like, this woman's off her rocker. There's no way we're getting along. And lo and behold, here we are, so many years later, best friends. So
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think
Beautiful.
the way I would answer what's a mantra that you live by, or what's a principle that you live by, is what I have learned over time is that I am happiest when my main motivator is being in service to you. Being in service to you makes me happy instead of being in service to me. So that I try to bring that into most of my relationships, of like, what can I bring? What can I bring? How can I participate in a way that's not about getting what I want out of it? And and then I get what I want out of it, which is to feel connected to you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, on that note of optimism and positivity and beauty, let's call it there. Will, Janet, thank you so much for joining me, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and hearing about your awesome project.
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
really,
you.
really appreciate it. It's fun to talk about this
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Well, till next time, everyone. See you then.